Alright, you guys, if you've been in class with me the last probably month, you have heard me pounding the drum of our squat depth. And I keep saying this phrase, something along these lines. First, squat deeper, and then get stronger. So it used to be in here, I was really pushing everybody, move up to a 35 or heavier. And that is my eventual goal for everybody. I don't think a 35-pound goblet squat should be heavy for anybody who's been here for 90 days or more. But there's one problem. If you continue to go heavy, but you don't fix the depth of the squat first, you probably will never get to the correct depth. And so I've been challenging everybody. Start with whatever you feel like isn't too heavy. And there's some value in holding a weight over just body weight. Work on the range of motion, fix that, and then increase the weight. And the goal should be for everybody to get up over 35 pounds, okay? There's a couple things to do that. So number one, squat depth. I always ask people, like, when you sit in a chair, do you typically just start here and just chuck yourself down and crash into the thing? Or do you sit down in the chair? Well, here's the deal. If I sit down in a chair, my knees are now basically, not quite, but almost 90 degrees. Well, guess what my goal for every one of you is? A squat that gets down to the level of your knees. Your butt, your hip should get down to your knee. That is the proper squat depth. And even if you have pretty mobile hips, deeper is even better. So I'll go below parallel. That is the eventual goal. Not everybody's going to get there, but every one of you should and needs to break 90 degrees with that knee, okay? So there's some questions of how to do it right, and look, I have a couple tools, tricks of the trade I can use for you in class if you're interested, but I'm seeing it paying off. I am seeing more people in my classes this month who are squatting to the proper depth because they're taking time, pulling back, and really committing to it. Because a lot of what I see is, right here, I'll hold away. I don't know if you can see that in a video, but that is nowhere near that, okay? So you're not elongating the quad muscle enough, you're not elongating the glute muscle enough, you're not getting to the point where the core has to brace well, it's not that it's a judgmental thing, it's that it's an ineffective thing, okay? It's not unsafe to squat shallow. Like, swings are actually dangerous when you do them wrong. Squatting shallow isn't unsafe, it's just you're robbing the benefits of it. You're never gonna make your quads and your butt and your core as strong as you should from a good quality squat until you get the depth. So, this is the reason I think a weight is more helpful than body weight. You might notice when you've done moves like a roll-up or a front squat or certain moves, you actually feel stronger with a weight in your hand, and here's why. The second you pick up a kettlebell and park it where it belongs, which is high up to the throat with the elbows in, all of a sudden, my core, meaning not my abs, everything around my middle, all of a sudden goes, it squeezes. It knows what to do. Your core goes, oh shoot, I gotta stay upright, I better clench a little bit. So having a weight in your hand, even if it's not super, super heavy yet, will all of a sudden make your core work harder, which will A, make you stronger, and B, help you stay upright, okay? So staying upright, the only way to get to this place in the proper stance is to keep your torso not vertical, but very upright, okay? Whereas a kettlebell swing, what do we say, chest to the floor. Totally different approach. I'm using now my hamstring. My squats, I'm using primarily my quads. Squats, front of the legs, swings, back of the legs, okay? So from squats, a couple of factors. Number one, what is your stance? I had a client today who just, to me, did her first all the way to the bottom squat in the 6 a.m. class, Elaine, and she was standing what I would say was too close together, but you know what? She picked up the bell, she stood fairly close, and she dropped her hips to her knee level. So here's the deal. I don't know your perfect squat stance until you squat. You might put your feet out a little wider. You might put them in a little deep, a little narrower, but wherever you can get them that feels like you're uninhibited and you can move all the way down through the motion, guess what? That's your proper squat stance. The only rules that we have to follow, because these are danger rules, no buckling inward, ever. No buckling inward. You can have your feet slightly out. I don't know if you can see your feet or not. I can't quite see the bottom. You can have your feet slightly out, but you cannot duck walk. You cannot turn them outwards. There are some ways to do it. For the purposes of this video, that is dangerous, okay? Usually because it leads to buckling inward with the knee, which is dangerous. And number 3, yes, your weight will move forward a little bit into the ball there, but your knees will move a little bit forward, but they can't pass your toes. So you can't let the knees, you never want to start a squat. You would never sit down to this chair. You'd never sit down to this chair by first pushing your knees forward, right? You would push your hips back and down, right? So we all know how to stand, but for some reason, when we pick up a squat weight, it's not uncommon for people to go shove their knees forward. That's not a squat, okay? We shove our hips back. It really happens as one fluid motion, but our hips come back and then down. That's the squat motion, okay? So knees don't come in front of the toes. Knees don't buckle inward. Chest stays nice and tall. And now get to the depth. Play with your stance. Start with hip width, go to shoulder width, go a little bit wider. See where it feels right. I have a natural spot and it's probably shoulder width, so it's not very wide. It's a little wider than my hip, so if I draw a line straight down, that's what I'm calling hip width. My line would be landing, my feet would be landing just outside that line. Okay, so that's my squat stance. You gotta play with your squat stance and see. But as long as you don't violate the rules, the knees don't buckle inward, the knees don't push forward in front of the toes, great. What I want is depth. So, one of the pieces that might help you, there's a muscle called your glute medius that tends to be a pretty weak muscle in a lot of people. And this is where our monster walks come into play. The monster walks are a great rehab exercise, and they're fun if you have leg hair too. They're a great rehab exercise to fix basically glute amnesia, we'll call it. Okay? So, let's talk about how to do proper monster walks. If you're doing monster walks, and so someone in class already said, I don't feel it, or where do I feel it? If you don't feel monster walks burn in about 4 reps, something's wrong. So look, number 1, it goes above your knees. I'm gonna push my feet apart, my knees apart actually. I'm gonna push my knees apart, and then I'm gonna sit in a mini squat stance. So like a half a squat, right? So I'm gonna push my knees up. Oh, I have people watching me, this is fun. Knees apart and mini squat stance. From there, the reason it needs to be at my knees, I'm not sometimes I see this is ugly. I'm not stepping with my foot, no. I'm prying with my knee and then stepping a little bit. I don't let them come together. Pry with my knee, step a little bit. Pry, step, pry. And literally, I just did 3 reps each side and I already feel it burning on the outside of my glutes, okay? So that is called the monster walk. If you did a few monster walks before you started your workout, a couple light swings, a set of planks, some cat-cow, some monster walks, that will help prep your core, your hips, everything to start firing and remembering, hey, get tense. So that then when you grab your bell and you're working on depth, now what's gonna happen as you squat is without turning your feet, as you squat, you're going to, just like a monster walk, push your knees outwards as you sit down through them, right? So yes, my knees will slightly, you'll see, slightly push outwards as I come down through. And I want to get those elbows to the knees. That's a good sign your squat is the right depth, okay? Don't despair if you haven't gotten there. This is one piece of coaching. Don't just get flip and silly and say, oh, ha, 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 you're young, you can do that. That's a great deflective defensive mechanism to basically say, I'm not really gonna push myself and try to get there. Because anybody at any age can squat correctly. period. And you need to, because guess what really matters as you get in your 50s, 60s, 70s? Bone density, range of motion, strength, ability to perform basic functions. Getting up and down off the ground, getting up and down from the toilet, climbing steps, being able to pick up basic things like groceries and move around. These are all basic human needs that are going to matter even more as you get older. So if you're squatting halfway down, you're never getting to the point where you're working on range of motion, strength, stability, all that good stuff that translates to better balance, better, all that good stuff, okay? So that is where I want to start with all of you this month. I want you to make it your habit, whether I'm your coach that day or not, of you're going to pick a goblet squat weight you can handle, and you are going to work to get your butt to the ground. I don't like people swinging sideways and looking at themselves in the mirror, but I don't mind if you need to turn sideways, do a squat, or have your trainer watch and see, is your depth right? Is this, you'll know when this femur bone is parallel to the floor, okay? That means your hip is level with your knee, and that's your minimum depth for squats. Once you get there, here's the piece. Go up a bell, and then go up a bell, and then go up a bell until it gets really hard to hold that bell and do a good squat, but you can still get the depth. That's where you should be working when it's strength, okay? Now maybe if it's higher reps, you can go a little lighter than that, but if it's 3 to 5 reps and we're working on maximum strength, heavy. Heavy as humanly possible by your throat, okay? So that's it, folks. That's it for now. Let's see some good squats out there. Bye.